Welcome to Brutally Anna, a podcast about finding love, losing love, and all the things we think about but don't talk about enough. I'm your host, Anna Kai, aka Maybe Both across social media, here to remind you that life can be beautiful even when it's freaking brutal. He's the internet's gay bestie, star of Bravo's Real Friends of WeHo, and is always there to remind us in the smokiest and sexiest of voices that what is coming for us is always better than what has left us. Our guest today, Joey Zauzig, carved a career for himself first in fashion and then transitioned to the dating skin tea recipe guru we could all use a little more of in our lives. Thanks so much for being here. I am so excited to talk to you, Joey.
I'm so excited. You're like so much hotter in person. I'm dying.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously. I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for having me. And you did your research. You know the beginning to end already. That's probably the best intro I've ever had on a podcast.
Oh, I'm honored. That's so flattering to me. I know your first viral post was a pair of sunglasses.
Yes.
And I tried to I tried to find it, and I was like, I'm just gonna have him tell me about it. But
I have a lot of posts.
You have a lot of posts. You've been in this for a long time.
6.5 years, full-time influencer.
Which is wild because you've gone through it. But before that, I want to talk about your childhood because you are so Joey. You have so much personality, but you grew up in Fairfax, Virginia, which is like what the opposite I think of. So can you tell me a little bit about your childhood? I know you were always getting sent to detention because you couldn't follow dress code.
Yes.
But what was that like? I mean, it couldn't have been easy.
Yeah, I think growing up, I was always myself, but I think I was like a shell of myself because I was always trying to figure out who I was. My parents got divorced when I was so young, and that really affected me because I think I had to be like the quote unquote man. I'm like me saying man as I'm like doing like gay air quotes, like for my mom.
You're a gay man.
That
doesn't mean you're
proud, baby. But I think that really affected me. And then going to a Catholic school and just being made fun of for being gay before I really knew what I was. Because I've always had this voice. I've always been very outgoing and flamboyant and handsy. Like, I think that
you were born gay.
I was born gay, babe. As Lady Gaga says, I was born this way, bitch. And I think that people really kind of like took that and ran with it. And that was kind of how I was labeled. And that was always really tough for me to work through because I tried to not be that. And then cut to like 11th grade, I came out and was finally able to be like myself. And that was when I really like came into my own and became the best version of myself.
What was that whole coming out process like, and why did you decide to come out? Did you come out to everyone or just your friends, not your family?
Well, this is really fucked up. Actually, my coming out story was actually, because I was in so much therapy for my parents' divorce. And I told my therapist, and my therapist told my mom. And that's how I came out.
Wait, I just literally ate this mic.
Yeah.
That is like not, isn't that like a HIPAA violation?
Yes. Yeah. It was really fucked up. And then my mom told my dad, and it was kind of a trickle effect. Thank God. Like, I'm very lucky. They
still loved you?
Of course. Like, they didn't kick me out.
Which, by the way, not everyone is so lucky.
No, a lot of people, can't do that and get disowned. So my parents were very accepting and like they kind of like knew, but I was also having girlfriends. So they were like, what's going on? But they were very okay. But I was, now I don't trust a therapist at all. Like, so it was a definitely very unconventional coming out story, but I was happy that it happened because once I did that, I came out. It was like a free for all, bitch. I was like out in DC and I was coming out to everyone in my life. Like, it was insane. And I had a really good time after that. And I think I really came into my own. But, the journey of finding yourself is always a long one. And I'm still figuring it out. And I think that every part of my life, like my parents' divorce, my coming out, my first long-term boyfriend breakup, now I'm going through something similar. Like, I think all those things that I went through, like super hard times in my life, always created and made something so much bigger happen. And I'm like living proof. So that's why I give this advice, because of the childhood experiences and all the bad things that happened.
That is so, I mean, you're so positive, but I love how blunt you are. And I think that's what I appreciate most about your advice, because you don't sugarcoat things, you know? And I just feel like I knew that had to have come from somewhere. And especially like even how you look today, like I feel like I've seen photos of you from when you were in high school. You just look like a different person, like everything. I mean, you're jacked. So there's that. Thanks, you were like a skinny kid in high school. You're like kind of gangly looking because you're very tall. And so all of that, like the glow up is amazing. And I think if given the choice between, you know, peaking in high school, which obviously some people do, like did you go to your high school reunion, or have you seen people from high school since?
No one invited me, bitch. So I'm like, I didn't even know we were having, I'm not sure if we had one.
Okay.
Because I think it would have been during COVID. Wait. Yeah, 10-year high school reunion would have been during COVID.
Okay. All right. So you're a little younger than me. Mine was right before COVID. Mine was 2019. I did.
What was it like?
You know what? I was still drinking then. And I got completely smashed off of dirty RGs. But it was really fun. And you know what? It was actually really interesting to see the guys that the one takeaway I remember, because so much of the night was a blur, was that like there were so many like guys that I kind of like wrote off, you know, unfairly as meatheads in high school because they were wrestlers and football players and whatever. And they were all just so put together. They were like married. One of them was like an anesthesiologist. He had like a family in Maryland. And I was like, go you. And it was just actually so refreshing to see that, because, you know, you kind of go to your high school reunion and you're like, oh, what's everyone? And I grew up in a very, very small town in Pennsylvania. And so a lot of people also ended up marrying each other from high school, which is really interesting.
That's what always happens. It's always the people that peaked early and then they like stay in their hometown.
And they're happy, which is great, because I think in so many ways, I'm like, you're probably a lot more content with your life than I am. Like I've always been chasing something.
Same.
And I'm like, in so many ways, I love my life, but I'm like, there are so many moments where like, I'm really screwed up in so many ways for, you know, going after. I'm like, you seem so happy. So, I mean, did you date a guy in high school then? Because 11th grade, it's cuspy.
Yeah, I think that my first boyfriend, I mean, I was definitely like starting to hook up with people during then, but my first boyfriend was in like my first or second year of college, and he lived in New York, and I was going back and forth to New York, and it was like a
How
whole
did you
thing.
meet him?
We met, okay, so this is crazy, but we were on set of a movie. I was an extra in this movie on HBO called The Normal Heart with Mark Ruffalo. And I was like an extra in the movie. And we met on Fire Island. And it was just like things just kind of really like snowballed fast. And I went back to college, but I was in New York every weekend. And like that was my first relationship. And it ended up being really toxic, super abusive. Like, he was really physically abusive. Like, I didn't know if that was normal or not because it was my first relationship. It was really bad. Learned a lot. Moved to New York. We moved in together. Did not last more than like 3 months. And I got out of it. And it was easy for me because I think I was like growing so much at the time and my heart was out of it. But I thought that was my end all be all. I thought he was like the love of my life.
Right. I mean, at that age, how old were you? 20?
Probably
21?
23. And we broke up. So, yeah. And then I had boyfriends after that. I had like a boyfriend like.
You couldn't stay single.
No. So no. Like that was like the craziest time for me. But like that's when my career really took off, to be honest. When I was in New York and after that breakup, like I was not down in the dumps. Like I was kind of like my heart was already out of it. And then my career just like that's when like the whole influencer thing popped off for me.
It's interesting because you moved to New York to work in fashion.
Yeah.
You were at Tommy Hilfiger.
That was my last job at Tommy Hilfiger, yeah.
Yeah. And did you think that was it for you because you also went to school in Virginia, which is interesting because you were like, okay, well, this is not my home, but I'm just going to continue going to college here.
Yeah.
And then did you move to New York straight after graduation?
Yeah, I graduated in 3.5 years because I wanted to get out. And I was having internships every summer.
At fashion labels, at designers?
Yeah, like KCD, which is a huge like PR agency. So like I worked at like Givenchy one summer. I worked for like Victoria Beckham one summer. So I had like all of these internships. And then I got a job offer like before I graduated. I was like, I got to get to New York if I have this job offer. So I literally graduated, moved to New York, and like moved in with that boyfriend at the time.
Right. Because you're like, I have no money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, he didn't either. Well, he did, but we like split rent.
Right.
And like, I had to pay for everything myself. It was a crazy time for me because I was so poor. And like, we lived in this like shithole. Like, it was crazy.
Where did you live?
Well, we lived in Tribeca, and it sounds nice, but it wasn't like the nice Tribeca. It was like more Fidei. And before that, during the summers when I was interning, I lived with like 15 girls on John Street in Financial District. So I went from like, I lived in every little aspect and neighborhood in New York because I had my come up in New York of like getting money and like, you know, my success started there. But like, you know, working in fashion for me, I really quickly realized I didn't want to be behind the scenes. And I realized that like, these bitches are crazy. Like there was too much going on. Like everything was an emergency. And it was like, I'm like, these are just clothes. And I realized I wanted to be the star. I was like, I want to be famous. I don't want to be behind the scenes. I don't want to be checking people in. I want to be checked in. Like I really realized that. So I fucking made it happen. And I got a job at Tommy Hilfiger after working for like Givenchy and like high brand labels. And it was my first in-house. I had no business being there because it was like 4 steps up, but I did a really good job in the role. So it was hard to like make the transition. And my parents were obviously pissed because it was my first like 6-figure like job. And like when I first moved to New York, I was making $30K like for a salary. Like that's crazy.
I know.
And you know, my parents were like, you're going to leave that stability, but they weren't helping me. So they didn't have a say. So I left, and then it just kind of like worked out.
You just really took a chance on yourself. You know what it is about you too that and I've said this, but you're so honest. Like I think it's so hard for people to even be like, oh, I wanted to be famous. Like that phrase. And I've heard you say this on another interview before, that influencers like ourselves have such a hard time with the word influencer. Nobody wants to say I'm an influencer because for some reason it's like a cringe word. And I feel that. Like I don't know why. I'm just like, I'm a content creator. But then the problem is nobody knows what the fuck a content creator is outside of this world.
Exactly.
So you go to a party with people with like, you know, corporate jobs and like, what do you do? I'm like a content creator. They're like, oh, I'm like influencer. They're like, oh, okay. What is that? Why do you think people are so afraid of using the word influencer or saying they want to be famous? And you were just like, no, I want to be a star.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of us felt, but still don't want to admit.
Yeah, I think it took me a long time to like be able to comfortably say that because you feel the judgment. But right now in my life, I feel like I'm going through a really big transition, and I feel like I've learned to see kind of not the mistakes I've made, but just the fact that I've been trying to please the wrong people for a really long time and trying to stay in a box and try to like make people see me in a different light. And it's always people that really don't deserve that time and attention from me. And now I'm just like, that is who I am. And like, that is my truth. I always did want to be famous. I always did want to do. What I didn't realize is that I think what really fuels me is helping people and being able to like make a difference. And when people come up to me in public, getting that recognition of you helped me through a breakup, or like you have no idea how much you helped me. Like you helped me move to LA. I lost 30 pounds, like the craziest stuff. That's what hits me. And like, it's not necessarily about the fame, but it's about being recognized for something. And like, I do like that. So I think that like the influencer world, I'm going to probably get in trouble for saying this, but I don't care. Like, I think that because not every influencer is the same. And there is influencers that I think for me and you, I can speak on this. Like we have businesses and we're hustlers. Like we really do look at this as a real full-time 9-to-5 job. We're not having like lunches and partying during the weekday. We're really like constantly 24/7 on thinking about the next thing, thinking about what we want to do next. A lot of influencers and people that go to decide to be influencers because they have a lot of followers, they think that it's like going to be this open-ended thing where they have their own schedule and they get to do whatever they want. They can have lunch with their girlfriends and they can go out. And then like when you have a business, you realize that like it's the opposite. Like you really have to work hard at this, and it's a really tough job, just like a lot of 9-to-5s are too. There's no difference. Like, and I think that a lot of influencers that don't do it like us have given it a bad name, because you could know influencers that aren't really necessarily doing the same thing, and they're like kind of like taking pictures of their salad and they're like good to go for the day. Like they're not really, it's like and that's what people see. And that's kind of the frustrating part about the phrase, because people think that it's just like that. And it's not every influencer is created equally. We all do different stuff. And, it's a job that should be respected.
Well, it's a massive industry. It's like,
it's $1 billion
industry that is still somewhat not recognized as being legit, which is so interesting. And so you're right. I mean, and just like there's quote unquote bad apples in any career,
there's definitely some bad apples,
and influencing. Although I don't know if you remember that Germanwings plane crash where I think the pilot commits suicide and crashed the whole commercial airline into a flight. And they were like, oh, well, that's just giving, that's a bad apple, giving like all pilots or whatever, or the flight industry a bad name. I'm like, yeah, but I'm sorry. There cannot be any bad apples in aviation. There's just can't. Like, we
can't take that risk.
We can't take that risk.
I'm like, babe, not for me.
There can be bad apples in influencing because, like, at the end of the day, no one dies. But I was like, that's an industry where you really should just have really, really good, solidly mentally stable people.
It's true. It's true. And like, for influencers, it can be whatever. And like, some of us aren't. It depends. Everyone has a different niche. And like, it's the end of advertising. Like, that's at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's advertising. And we're doing like the jobs that used to be commercials. Like, it's ever evolving. I think there's a lot more to be said about it. Like, there's a lot more to do with it. I think that we're just not in the beginning, but I think a lot of people love to hate on it and can't wait for it to go away. But there's going to be another variation of it, as there always is. And like, I also think that like a lot of people blew up on TikTok and stuff and decided that like they're going to leave their 9 to 5 and be influencers. And then they get into the job and they quickly realize it's tough. And then instead of stopping, because like I think they make the money, they just complain about it. And I'm like, well, that's what you signed up for. Like, you don't go into being an influencer thinking it's easy, because it's not. Like, it's a job like everything else. And yes, you do get to decide like how hard it is, because it's about how hard you work, but that's another pressure you put on yourself. You also have to worry about all the rinky dinks in the peanut gallery, always talking shit. Like, everyone's misconceptions about you, everyone's opinions. Like, it's not for the faint of heart.
No, and you're not only an influencer, you also went on reality TV, which also I think subjects you to a whole other level of scrutiny.
Yeah.
Your followers are all up in your business.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they know everything about your life that maybe you haven't even like talked publicly about.
But they know everything.
Oh, they know everything. And I was like, this is honestly like your subreddit is way more informational than any article that has ever been published about you, because your followers, and like, they're so great. I think they love you, but I was like, wow, I don't even know this much about my own damn life. And they're like, well, I think this happened. And I was like, this is great. So it's kind of cool because you have this community that really feels like they know you. But it's also another level of just odd, because here's the thing. It's like, you had a really, really horrifying incident happen to you a couple months ago. You were the victim of a home invasion, and like not just any kind of home invasion, they were armed. And I feel like the part of being an influencer that I struggle with is being in the public and not having privacy anymore. And can you just walk us through what happened that night and how you felt? I mean, I remember watching your video about it, and and I saw the surveillance footage. It's horrifying. It's my worst nightmare.
Yeah. Well, first, I think it's like you said, like, you really open your life up to everybody on these platforms when you become an influencer. And, the public persona, which is something, like I said earlier, I wanted. I love that. I love, like, that kind of stuff, until something like the home invasion happens, and it kind of makes you pull back, and it's really hard. And, I was in Cabo posting up a storm, and like I always do on vacation. And, I think I've been in this momentum because, like in our industry, you have ebbs and flows, and I've been in this flow and like having this momentum of like gaining so many followers, especially on Instagram, like daily. And it's exciting because you see the numbers rise. And yes, we give a fuck about the numbers. Like, you can't lie about that. It makes you feel good.
It's a drug.
It's a drug. It's a drug. But it also, gives you the motivation to keep going.
Yeah.
what you don't realize is within those numbers, not every person is good. And not every person that's watching you wants the best for you.
Oh, I have so many hate follows.
And you get the hate follows, but then there's people that are watching you for the wrong reasons. And what I realized is that these people that came to my house were watching me. And I was doing these lives in my closet and I was doing these things. So on my street, I have like 3 celebrities. There has not been a break-in in my street in 30 years because there's live security, like people that there's literally full-time security in my neighborhood. So they had been watching me. They thought I was in Cabo. I ended up coming home a day early. I don't even know how much they were. Were they listening to my radio show where I said I was coming back Monday instead of Sunday? They knew the details. So, we come home a day early. I don't post about being home because we get home really late. We go to bed at like 9:30. And when you go, like you hear something in your house and it's always nothing, but you get up and check. You check your cameras.
It's like your dryer or something.
Yeah, and it's never anything. That happens to me all the time. Right. I always check my cameras. Never has it ever been anything. This night I got up, did my little routine, checked out the window, didn't see anything, went to bed. And then I was like, should I check the cameras? It's usually nothing. I was exhausted because we traveled that day. I was like, I'm going to check the cameras. I go on the cameras and lo and behold, they had just broken the big glass and it's 3 guys with like guns and like masks. And I was like, what do I do? This has happened a lot in LA. So I've always had like an escape plan for if anyone ever got into the house and we were there. I don't know what to do. So I run to the top of the stairs and I'm like, get the fuck out. Fuck you. Blah,
wait,
blah.
By the way, was the opposite of what I would have done.
Yeah.
I would have hidden in a closet somewhere.
I was like in gay. I'm like, get the fuck out, bitch. Like, move. Like, I was like, I'm going to fuck you out. And they're like, fuck this. Like, I don't know what happened, but we have these sliding, the alarm didn't go off because they use this device to break the glass. It doesn't set off. You don't have
a glass break sensor?
We do, but they use devices now. There's a way to break the glass so it doesn't doesn't set off the glass break sensor. It's fucking weird.
That's horrifying.
And there's like this thing that electronically, it's really weird. I have chills. So I set off the alarm by pulling the thing in the primary bedroom, opening the doors in the primary bedroom. And I'm like, I call the police and the helicopters and police cars get there in like 5 minutes. Cut to, there's like, a day later, it's like New York Post, New York Times, Joey Zauzig's house, blah, blah. It's my name everywhere. Someone took a video of me talking to the police. This is like at midnight and submitted it to like TMZ, which I'm like, who was that? So probably the biggest breach of privacy that I've ever had since I've been doing this. And it's a really weird feeling. And it's still really tough I haven't recovered from it. I'm not normal. I'm not back to the same. And to sit here and be like, yeah, it's something that happened to me and like act like I've learned from whatever, like it's still like really fucked me up. And I don't know. I think a lot of people that have gone through it have said it's going to take a really long time to heal from it. And, I'm healing, but I think talking to you, you'll understand this. Like for our jobs, I don't think that people realize what it takes to go on and share and what it takes to be authentic, because being authentic is supposed to be easy, right? It's not. Like being authentic takes a lot out of you. It does. And that's just the truth. So when you are going through a hard time, first of all, you can't just talk about this every day and all the time, but like it's hard to go on and just go back to your normal content creation and going back to creating. And it's, historically, it's been really hard for me to take a break. And, I have been struggling a lot lately, and I haven't even talked about this with like my followers. Like the break-in it really broke me, and I'm still broken from it. And every day I struggle more than I've ever struggled in my life from that. Like it's just, my heart's broken. I feel like really violated. I feel scared everywhere I go. Like not even just at my home. The second the sun goes down, I feel like it's going to be happening again. Everything I post on the internet right now, I feel like someone's watching because I don't know the hundreds of thousands of people that are watching my stuff. I don't know who they are. And I always feel like now there's somebody that is watching me for the wrong reasons. And that's hard to get over. And I don't know the answer and I don't know the solution. And I'm trying my best to owe it to my audience who I love so much because they're so dialed in. And so maybe this podcast right now is me finally talking about the fact that I am having a really hard time getting back into what I've been doing for the past 6 years. And that's a really difficult feeling because I feel like I'm letting everyone down.
Which, by the way, you are not, because here's the thing is I watched that video right after it happened, the day after you posted about the home invasion. And I've seen your content since then. And the fact that, guys, Joey met me at 8 a.m. All right. So we're recording at 8 a.m. And I sent him that time thinking he was never going to take it. And he's we'll do podcast.
Let's go.
We'll do it. And so the fact that, life is not about not struggling. Life is about the meaning we find in struggle. And because you've been on this journey with your audience for 6 years, I mean, something was bound to happen. You can't just be happy and healed all the time. Okay.
That's so nice to hear from you because that's been the struggle. I give that advice all the time. And I think I've never talked about this and it sounds really bad, but what you just said, when you think something in your head, it's really nice to hear it out loud because not everyone thinks that way. Right. But that's the truth.
They're like, oh, well, you need to be this person. You need to be strong and stop it. Basically.
And you can't always be. And I think in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, what is going to be the thing that happens? Because I knew it wasn't going to be pretty happy for the long haul. And, part of me, as fucked up as it sounds, was a little ready to go through a hard time again because I know I'm strong enough to get through it. And I know it makes me better. And I know what comes from this is extreme growth as a human. And I think I need a little bit of that. Did I think it would be...
Did you think it was going to be a home invasion?
No, not this dramatic. But that's been the really hard part is it's I've never been through something like this. And the period of time that I'm in my life right now is the hardest period of time I've ever been through in my whole entire life. And I think talking about it and admitting that is important.
Because here's the thing, your followers are going through some of the hardest moments in their life. And I think the reason why you give really great, poignant advice is because you've been through it and you're going through it. And I would urge you to look at this period of your life as inspiration for the next set of amazing content, if you want to think of it in that way. You're going to learn so much from this home invasion and kind of what we're going to talk about next in this period of struggle that is just going to fuel your content and your audience even more because they're going through the same shit.
I'm getting so emotional because I feel like I haven't talked about the things that I want to talk about with everybody because it's been so hard. And I feel like I'm at a breaking point as of this week. And I feel like it's hard to keep going and creating. And this job is not for the faint of heart. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. If these mics weren't in front of me right now, I'd give you a massive hug.
I love my audience. I love everyone that supported me. I think it's really hard to look at what a break feels like for us. And I don't want to take a break because I love my job and I love what I do and I love entertaining. It's what I'm on the earth to do. But, when it comes time for us to take a break, what does that look like for us? How do we unplug? How do we focus on ourselves and do that? And I think that I'm trying to learn what it looks like. And I'm trying to learn how to give myself grace and to feel the feels. And it's just been hard. And I think that what we can talk about is what I've been through after the break-in.
And well, before we get to that, I want to tell you how I have given myself grace because I have not been through nearly anything as traumatic as you've been through in the last 3 months. But I've also found I struggle with a lot of mental health and got on medication for the first time after getting this job, basically, because I didn't know how to handle kind of everything all at once. And I think you feel so much obligation to stay in front of people. And the way I heal is just by pulling back. I'm literally 4th of July, that whole week, no one is going to hear from me. I'm giving myself a 10-day break,
That's
not
so
to post,
nice.
not to, but maybe you should do that. Give yourself not a 10-day break to go on vacation, because I think a vacation almost in a way is like stress in and of itself. No partying, no nothing. Just like hang out, do nothing, and I know for somebody like you, that's so tough because you've been grinding for so long. Give yourself permission to do jack all.
Yeah.
I think you need that to just kind of unwind and just kind of process what has happened. And it's not going to fix everything, but the best way to keep going sometimes is not to force yourself to keep going. It's to stand still, because I think only when you are standing still, when you're at a crossroads, can you see which path you need to take. If you're always moving, how do you know where to go next? And you are at a crossroads right now.
I am. And I think I know that. And I think it's just, I always feel like I'll find it when it's supposed to be there. So I'll find the break when it's supposed to be there, because that's how my life has always worked. But like life changes and everything does not always work the same as it used to. And, stepping outside your comfort zone and, that's important. So I think that maybe outside my comfort zone is not grinding. And I always give the advice for everyone to give yourself grace and take a break. But I'm like, and then I can't do it myself. So it's very tricky. But, again, to hear it out loud from someone like you too, it helps, because it's just like, you're going to be okay. Everyone's still going to be there when you get back. Like nothing's going to change, except for you will have a better understanding and a clearer mind.
And I've done that before. I've taken 10 days, 2 weeks over Christmas, not posted, and everyone is still there and they don't even realize, because they're like, oh, I felt like people's memories are so flawed. I think there have been studies about that. People are like, oh my God, I just saw this video that you posted last week. I'm like, this is a video from 6 months ago.
Yes.
But sure. And
you
also don't know what the algorithm's pushing out while you're not posting. Like I have videos going viral from months ago, whereas a video from today, like nobody's, it's just different. And so it's like giving yourself the grace to take a break is really going to, I think, maybe alleviate some of the struggle going on. But I want to shift gears to kind of what happened after the break-in. And I'm curious as to whether that break-in precipitated what happened next in your marriage. So after the break-in, you had possibly something even more traumatic happen to you, and you're still going through it right now.
Yeah.
You got married last year to your partner of 4 years, and now you are currently in the process of not being married.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember seeing your wedding in St. Bart's last year. So walk me through what happened.
Yeah. I can't talk. I'm not going to say so much about it. And I obviously don't want, I want to respect him and still be, but this is my life. So like, I'm talking about what I'm going through, and it doesn't have anything to do with him. And I want to make that clear before I go into this. But I do want to talk about it because it's like after the break-in, that was traumatic enough. And I was trying to heal from that. And then, we were just not getting along for a really long time. And I think in a way it had been over for a little bit, but I was always willing to work on it, and I wanted to work on it, but I definitely needed some space. And maybe that was because of the break-in and because I was feeling like it really, I think, affected him. I think the press of it all affected him too, because his name was in there. And listen, I get it. I totally understand that that's scary. And like, he's not a public person. I'm the public person. But he was with me. Like, he was on a reality show with me. Like, at the end of the day, it's like you can't really pick and choose, unfortunately, in this industry, what type of publicity you get, whether it's good or bad. Like, with the good comes the bad. And I think that definitely freaked him out. And, I wanted a break, but I didn't want it to be over forever. And now, cut two, I think I've come to the conclusion that like it's for the better, but my heart's broken. I'll be okay. But when he said that like we need to start writing up separation agreements and figuring out what we're doing with the dogs in the house, it was like, wow, okay, like this really isn't going to be worked on. And then, you always think when you go through a breakup that there's some glimpse of hope that you guys get back together. And like, even though I tell you, bitches, don't get back together with them because they always come back, but do not go back with the next. It's like fucking ask a kidnapper to keep in touch after they let you go type of shit. Like, but now just the way this is unfolding, did I ever think it's like a full divorce? We've hired lawyers. It's getting messy. It's like what you never want to go through as a 31-year-old man. Like, did I ever think that I'd be going through this at this age? No. And it's really hard to navigate. I have good days and bad days because I do believe everything happens for a reason. But how do you like keep that mindset when you're fucking knee deep in like lawyers' bills and like figuring out what you're doing with the houses? I'm living in this like 10,000 square foot house alone, like paying for like it's crazy. And it's been really the most difficult thing. It consumes me. And it's not fair because it doesn't have to be like this. I haven't seen my dogs in 2 months. Those dogs are my everything. Like,
I think that's the worst part about all of this is when there's, whether it's children or dogs or shared things, shared life that you're both responsible for. That's tough.
Yeah. I'm shocked I haven't seen my dogs. And
is that a legal issue?
Well, I don't know. My lawyers, everyone's finding it out. And this is like, it's okay. I'm the most impatient person in the world. And I also believe on like, okay, now that I know, because of, to be quite honest, like the way that this is going down right now has given me the clarity of like, okay, this is really over and I don't want to be with this person. Like, this is not for me. So I need to bounce. It's giving me more clarity and like, there's not that much at stake, but I've kind of had to like realize that I need to kind of, unfortunately, kind of come to the conclusion and kind of realize that the dogs could be gone and they could be his. And like, if that means me moving on with my life, I have to make those choices because I can't be where I'm at right now for much longer because I am at a breaking point and I am just mentally struggling because it's like every day there's something new, every day. And I'm trying my hardest to keep it out of the public. I'm trying to keep it out of like as big of an audience as I can. I don't want everyone to know. I mean, people know, but I'm not ready to talk about what I really want to talk about with it.
Because I think you can't talk about it yet because you're still going through it. You don't know what lessons you've learned yet. And I think that's the thing is I don't talk about stuff while I'm going through it because I'm like, I don't know. I feel like a complete mess right now. What am I going to tell you guys other than the fact that I feel like a mess? And I think the other part of our job is that we feel like we should be sharing the mess because we share so much of our lives, but like there's no obligation to share that aspect of your life if you feel like outside noise is going to be detrimental to your process of healing. There's no obligation to give people a window into that part of your life if you need to hold that sacred because it's such a messy, devastating thing to go through right now. And I think if the dogs weren't part of the equation,
it'd be so much easier.
It would be so much easier because at the end of the day, you're just arguing over dollars and cents and you can always make money back. The thing that I know, because I have a girlfriend going through a divorce right now who shares a child with her soon-to-be ex-husband, is that she's like, I don't care about the money. I was like, well, what about alimony, child support? She's like, Anna, I don't give a shit about any of that. She's like, but our child is going to link us together forever. Now, that's different because it's a child. I am a dog mom, so I can't even believe I'm saying this, but dogs are different. If you need to let go and figure out a way to let go of those dogs, you can do that.
Yeah, and if that's what he needs to move on, and if that's what he's going to do, that's what he's going to do. And I can't force or fight forever. And, I I've had to make like these really hard mental decisions and like just like trying to see the clarity of it all, of the realization and the reality of like, okay, if this is what it's going to be, like you're going to have to find, like you're going to have to really, this is starting from scratch again. And starting from scratch is not easy. You know, thank God, like I have my career and like everything is going really great in that aspect of my life. It's funny because like career is like that. Personal life is like in the fucking gutter, bitch. Like, and that's what's funny. You never think that you're going to be going through the best part of your career while your personal life behind the scenes is falling apart. And it just so happens your career is about being yourself and your personality and your life, you know, and that's been the hardest part. But I'm not going to let anybody take away my success. And I'm not going to let anybody put me down in the dumps because that's not fair to myself. So that's kind of the mindset I'm taking. And also, I'm going to be okay because I have to be, because like I'm going to take this as a lesson. I'm going to grow from it. And like, that's what keeps me going. But sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. Sometimes you don't believe this, but you have to say it out loud. You have to snap yourself the fuck out of it. You have to look yourself in the mirror, put some fucking dry shampoo in that bitch, like get a fucking espresso, have a glass of Chardonnay if you need it, and like move on, because like that's the only way you're going to get through it. And like maybe not the Chardonnay, that's why I'm stopping drinking, because I've had too much fucking Chardonnay. But like, you know what I mean? Like it's important to snap yourself out of things. We're really powerful in that way as like human beings. So I'm trying to, I think there's always like, I'll never be the person that stays down in the dumps. There's like the down in the dumps bitches that like will be there forever and never move on. And there's the people that use these really fucked up hard times in your life as like ammo and motivation to get to like your best self.
But I think the thing that you said, I'm going to be okay, is so powerful because you speak it into existence. And also because you have been okay in the past. You've gone through, actually, this is extremely traumatic. Like a divorce is just one of the most traumatic things you could ever go through. But think about you growing up in Virginia, coming out in that horrible way where it was not on your terms, moving to New York, not having money, being in an abusive situation.
Yeah.
You are in a much better position outside of your soon-to-be ex-marriage right now in life to handle this. You're equipped. That's why God gave it to you. I don't know what you believe in, but I think the universe, whatever, life gave you this moment at this moment, because if you're given it, I do believe you can handle it.
You're not given anything you can't handle. And you're right. And that's what I've kept in mind. Like, and I tell everyone that, like on the internet and off the internet, I'm always like, you're only going to do this because you're strong enough to get through it. And that's something I know, but it's hard to snap into shit sometimes. It's hard to like be there mentally. So I'm getting there mentally.
What have you done recently to kind of help cope while you're going through this divorce and healing from the home invasion?
For me, I think talking about it really helps. Like, and I think that my friends are like, shut the fuck up already. But like, I'm lucky enough to have friends that will listen because it's consuming my mind, because how couldn't it? It's like every day it's something different. This is what I'm currently dealing with. But talking about it has been really healing. But again, like you said, like I'm still on this like healing journey of figuring out what I'm learning here and what I'm supposed to be doing for myself. What I found I'm not supposed to be doing is turning up every weekend and like hooking up with a bunch of, like, I need to like tone it the fuck down, chill the fuck out, and like understand that there's like a lesson in this. And I don't know, I think I need to like maybe go away with myself for a little bit and like just spend some time with me and relearn and re-love myself again. Because I think once you get out of a relationship, and no shade, but like you kind of realize like what the relationship or that person has taken from you. And I think one of the biggest things, not to toot my own horn, but like I think I have like a really bright light. And I think I'm one of those people that like has always walked into a room and lit it up. And I've loved that about myself. I love making people feel good. I love making people feel confident and sexy. And I think I've always had that. And I think what I haven't realized is that for the past probably 6 months, I think my light has been like dramatically dimmed. And I didn't looking back, I don't think I was really myself. And that's scary. So I want to get back to like my bright light. It just sucks because right now my light is really fucking dim because I'm going through this thing. But I think knowing what you want to focus on, keeping the goal and desire in your head, like it's like reaching your goals. I always tell everyone to like keep your most delusional dream in your head every single day. And the steps to get there will all make sense once you get to that delusional dream. Because I think, you have to keep those no little goals. Like you can have little goals, but like the thing you need to be keeping in your head every day is like where you want to be at the end of your life, what you want to do. And it should be delusional. That's why you have to surround yourself with delusional friends. You need people that are going to be like, oh, you're like, okay, I want to be the gay Oprah like I do. And they're like, oh, duh. Like you're going to be there in 5 years, you're going to be there. You're going to have a talk show. You're going to have a lifestyle brand, denims, linens, pots, pans, cookbooks. Like that's where you'll be. And you need friends to hype you up on that because that's just speaking it into existence, as you said.
But also think about how far you've come here and how unlikely it was for a kid from Fairfax, Virginia to be here. So you couldn't have gotten here without some level of, we don't even need to call it delusion, just faith. I think it's faith.
Faith for sure. And because I think faith comes like from deep down, like intuition. Like at the end of the day, when you do look back on where you were 5 years ago, you would have dreamed to be in the position you're in today, but we don't appreciate it when we're in the moment.
Well, we always just see what's coming next and what we haven't achieved.
Exactly. But and that's why it's important to really like be grateful for that. And then once you're grateful for what you have in this moment is when you get the bigger opportunities. And that's how it's been for me. So that's where I'm at. And that's what I'm trying to focus on and getting back to that. And I think just like staying sober, and I want to say it on this podcast specifically, I'm going to do another 6-month stint as of today of sobriety again because it really helped me.
All right, we're going to high five on that. It's a promise, right?
It's a promise.
Okay, you said it publicly.
I said it publicly.
You know what I find, because I've been 6 months sober.
Yes.
And I find that it is the decision, when you make the decision, it's so easy. It's hard to make the decision. That's what it is. Once you make it, you're like, duh. Because we're lucky in that you and I are obviously not alcoholics.
Yes.
We don't struggle with.
We're very lucky. I think about that all the time.
We're not addicted to alcohol, so we can just decide. But I think the hardest part is deciding. And I think you haven't decided because you were like, I just need a break. I need to disassociate from my life right now.
Yep. And now I'm like, making these like, because last time I did the same thing. I made a decision. I still went out. I still did everything, but I was not drinking. And I made the decision. And like,
and you looked fire.
I know. That's the shitty part, I will say, is like I was in this relationship. We weren't at that time, like, it was rough. But I was like, doing the sobriety in the beginning, I haven't even talked about this because we needed to do it for the relationship, to help the relationship. Our therapist was like, you guys both need to be sober during this time because, any relationship, the alcohol and everything, it just fuels the fights even more.
You need to be present.
So what's annoying is I did that shit while I was in this relationship and I got the most fire body and stuff, but I wasn't even fucking and I wasn't even talking to anyone. I wasn't even out there being single. So I'm like, so what was the point of that? So now you better believe I'm going to do it tenfold and I'm going to get the best body and look my hottest and feel my best. I deserve that. I deserve to feel good. And anyone going through a breakup and going through a hard time or not feeling their best, I think like just because beauty comes from within, it also comes from outside too. If you feel like you look great, and that doesn't mean everyone compares and contrasts. Like I need a 6-pack or I need this. No, if you feel like you look fire, you're going to internally also feel fire. Like it all goes, it's like a 360 fucking radiates. Circle. Yes. So I'm back to, and for me, it's a 6-pack. So I will be going back to my hottest self. And I'm excited for it.
Well, if you can do it for your ex, you can do it for yourself.
Exactly. Period.
One last thing I want to end on, because this is by far one of my favorite pieces of advice you've ever given, because I just thought the metaphor, I'm such a sucker for metaphors, is so accurate. You were like, some people are like boosters on a rocket and you are the rocket. And when the rocket reaches a certain height, the boosters fall off because then the boosters would just be weighing the rocket down.
Yes.
And I feel like you are the rocket right now and you are trying to get rid of the boosters.
Yes.
And maybe one has fallen off, but maybe this is the start of the second one falling off right now.
I think it is. And I appreciate that because that video like resonated with me. Sometimes I do have to watch my own videos and I'm like, wow, like it is true. Like I'm like on my way up and one of the boosters was not supposed to be there for a lifetime and they, couldn't handle the altitudes and everything going on, and that's fine. But yeah, I'm waiting for the other one to come so I can really soar. And I am excited for that moment. And I know that it's coming. And I know that like really big things are in store for me. And sometimes that's why you go through these hard times, because those boosters both need to come off. And in order for them to, you have to fucking work through the hardest shit.
Well, it's your butterfly effect, because I like to end on asking like, oh, what's your butterfly effect? What rejection or what terrible time was pivotal in your life? But I think right now you're going through it. And I honestly can't wait to see what happens next, because I think you're going to look back on this time in your life 5 years from now and be like, thank God. Thank God I got divorced. Thank God my house was broken into, because I could not be who I am today, 5 years from now, Joey, without all of this happening.
See, that's what I'm excited for, because I know that I'll be there. Because I look back on like my ex, like abusive relationship and my parents' divorce, and I'm like, thank God. Because I don't think, what if I was still in that relationship? I would be nowhere where I am today. So I'm excited to see myself, and even like a year from now, and be
even
like,
in a month from now.
Even in a month from now.
Think about being sober for a month and just really doing you, eating right, going to the gym, all that.
That's what I'm excited for.
1 month of that. Let's catch up.
I'm excited and we will catch up. And I'm excited because I think big things come in. You heard it here first.
Thank you so much for being here today and for being so open. I think it's really helpful to not only hear from our favorite inspirational figures, like not how they've overcome, but also how they are overcoming.
Yes.
Because life is in the present tense. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having me. Love ya. Thank you. I'm excited for this to come out. I cried. We
laughed, we loved, we cried, all of the feelings.
And I'm excited to check in a month. Who knows where I'll be, bitch? See you soon.
With a 6-pack.
Yes, for real.
Who knows who you'll be with?
I know. Ooh, stay tuned.